Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am Karan Kukreja, the project director for the Cyber Warriors Conclave. Thank you all for taking your time to join us. Today, we are connecting with the senior executives responsible for protecting their company's critical infrastructure with innovative solution providers and information security experts. We will learn from them how to protect and defend our businesses from cyber attacks during interactive panels and fast track discussions. Thank you to our sponsors, SafeTech Innovations, GreenGate, Mimecast, and Assembly. The conclave will start off with a presentation on crossing the knowledge barrier between IT and OT security, followed by a panel discussion on cybersecurity crucial to deliver a successful digital transformation and OT and IT convergence, moderated by Mimecast and panelists from Emirates National Oil Company, Saudi Aramco, GCC's leading electricity company, ENY, TACA, and SafeTech Innovations. I would now like to call upon Mr. Stenilia from SafeTech Innovations. The screen is all yours, Mr. Stenilia.
Okay, thank you very much. Uh, Hello to all and good morning. Let me share my screen. Hmm, Okay, hope it's visible for everybody. Oh,
Yes, it's
my
clear.
name, yeah, okay, thank you. My name is Marnel Stanilo. I have 10 years of experience in the field of cybersecurity, out of which 8 within tech innovations in various roles, from the implementation of security solution to governance, risk and compliance audit activities and consulting. I'll be talking today about a few pointers from my experience in dealing with IT and OT environments and their security. So whenever I was engaged in a conversation with OT engineers and operators discussing their security of their environment, I used to get more or less these answers, which were more or less the same, that ICS SCADA networks are isolated, that specialized equipment and custom software are used so that attackers are unaware of their inner workings and thus cannot be attacked. That some HMIs have only limited functionality, so they cannot be exploited or modified to alter production. And these were valid answers because I don't blame them for being focused on their job, on their bubble, because it's their job, and their job is not to be a security engineer. But in fact, the view is more complicated than that, because from a technical point of view, you can see what is the progression from the process to the enterprise, and nothing is just black and white like in this diagram. And OT and IT infrastructures have to be working together, and the OT equipment is heavily reliant on the IT infrastructure, but there are significant differences here between the two. So starting from the latency, the two have both specific latency that are required when communicating for each side. So for the OT side, latency is critical. For the IT side, it's not such a big problem. Message can be resent. So um, the way the different traffic patterns communicate It's also very different because in the OT environment, the traffic is very deterministic. So you can know what bytes are being sent, and they are sent only for explicit purposes. But in the IT side, the traffic is all over the place. So also there are the different communication intervals. In the OT side, they are communicating in specific intervals, where in the IT side, um, it's it's much bigger traffic, so it is communicating all the time. Um, and if that was the technical view, the actual view in the network could be more like this. You can see all the spider web of connection between the IT networks and the OT networks if they are not segregated properly. Um, Attackers can be effectively a few steps away. So cyber threats are not just theory. So traditional solutions like perimeter and client level security solution provide limited visibility, not being able to ensure the treatment of multiple attack vector incidents, and this is no longer enough in the current context in which we have a wide range of complex threats. Um, it is known that systems in SCADA environments are not the most up to date, and affecting them can have major consequences. So this statement is illustrated in the slide pictures, which are taken from production networks environments through a security solution for industrial security. So in most cases, these environments are not really well inventoried, and without this kind of visibility, one cannot talk about proper security. So it's not because um, nobody wants to, but it's because it's hard, because this kind of equipments can be installed a long time ago, do not communicate all that frequently, and it's a much bigger challenge than in the IT environments, and you cannot actively pursue them because some might break, so you will have a production issue. And you cannot secure a network if you don't know the devices within it, and what are the communication patterns, and especially if those devices are inherently insecure or cannot be secured through internal mechanism. This can potentially become a huge issue, especially as we see if um, connectivity is allowed. Malicious actors on the internet are actively scanning for vulnerabilities and way to uh, attack and inflict damage. So, how can we overcome the challenges that we face regarding this kind of cybersecurity resilience today? So, OT engineers have the difficult job today, that they have to ensure the safety and reliability of equipment and services in the operational networks. Uh, but um, also they are being asked to uh, do that in terms of security, but confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information, which are the tenets of information security, are not really their job. So, and OT protocols such as DMP3, Siemens S7, Ethernet IP, Modbus, and so on They can use the TCP stack over IP or over ISO, so they can be accessed through IT means, and attackers could potentially get to them. So they are on the IT, can be on the IT network, but are totally different from IT protocols used in the enterprise at higher levels of the Purdue model. So that being said, they are totally reliant on the IT networks, communicating with the enterprise IT systems such as MES or connecting data to our ERP reporting system is absolutely required by corporate management. But um, securing the IT and OT network flows and segregating them is the absolute objective of the information security officers. So we can see how we can meet these both objectives. Um, in order to address this risk, in order to have a safe environment, um, in view of the above, what I said earlier, an approach to security should be reviewed. So security should no longer be viewed as a one-time activity, but as a process. And this is also the central idea of the adaptive security architecture proposed by Gartner, present in this slide. And in addition to the traditional activities of prevention and detection that everybody is familiar with, which involved strengthening of the security system, reducing the range of attack by securing access and detection based on signatures. Activities of analysis and a response to threat must be incorporated also. And so what needs to be done? A proactive approach that includes threat hunting activities that involve identifying and investigating threats and intrusions can greatly improve the level of security by streamlining the response to incidents, increasing the speed of response, and at the same time reducing the rate of false positives. Now, firewalls and signature-based mechanisms are no longer um, sufficient to protect against this kind of advanced attacks. So an updated approach is required. So this approach has to be continuous and real time because attacks can happen at any time. So it has to be passive and non-intrusive as not to disrupt the production environment, because this is the most important. And it has to be heterogeneous and vendor agnostic. So it will cover all of your devices or uh, any kind of custom equipment you have embedded in your production environment. And it has to have the integrated security tools with the expertise to detect threats, investigate, and respond to incidents, because no kind of tool is relevant if they are not used by the right individuals. So next I will present you what are my top 10 recommendations for a safe environment, and then key takeaway. So in my opinion, the first recommendation that I could have is to identify all connection to SCADA networks. So should perform an in-depth risk analysis to assess the risk and the need for each connection to the SCADA network. You should develop a comprehensive understanding of all connections to the SCADA network and how well these connections are protected. You, sh- you should identify and evaluate the types of networks that are connected, like internal networks and the extended networks in the business networks, for example, the internet and wireless networks include um, satellite uplinks or mobile networks, connection with business partners, suppliers, or regulators. Um, After identifying the connection, we should disconnect unnecessary connection from the SCADA networks to ensure the highest level of security for SCADA systems. We should isolate the SCADA networks from other connections to the highest degree possible. So any connection to other networks, of course, it carries security risks, uh, especially if the connection creates a path to or from the internet. So although direct connection to other networks can allow important information to be transmitted efficiently and conveniently, insecure connection are simply not worth the risk, and the isolation of the SCADA network must be a key objective in order to ensure the necessary protection. So, in this respect, strategies such as the use of demilitarized zones, such as DMZs and data storages, can facilitate the secure transfer of data from the SCADA networks to the business networks. However, this must be properly designed and implemented to avoid introducing additional risks um, through improper configuration. So we should also perform a vulnerability scan for the remaining connections to the SCADA networks for the IT systems to assess the protection and the security posture associated with this pathway. Uh, because the SCADA network is only as secure as the weakest connection point, it is essential to implement proper segregation measures and to monitor this with measures such as firewalls, not servers with connection in both networks, intrusion detection system, and other appropriate security measures for SCADA environment. We should configure the firewall rules to prevent access to and from the SCADA network and be as specific as possible when allowing approved connection. For example, a subcontractor should not be granted general network access just because a connection to certain components of the SCADA system are required. No. The management of the organization must understand and accept the responsibility for the risk after the analysis, but of course they must be informed and this analysis has to be done. What other recommendation is uh, the same with the same effectiveness is that security through obscurity is not real security. So you should not rely on it. Uh, SCADA control servers built on commercial and open source operating system may be exposed to attack through default services that are being enabled. As much as possible, I should remove or disable unused services and to request the reduction of the risk of direct attack. So, some SCADA systems use unique proprietary protocols for communication between field device and servers. And often security of the SCADA system is based solely on the secrecy of these unique proprietary protocols. Um, the downside of that is that unfortunately obscurity offers very little real security. Do not rely on obscurity. Do not rely on proprietary protocols or factory default settings to protect your systems, because sometimes provider also equip systems with service interface that can be exploitable by uh, attackers in order to perform their maintenance more easily. Uh, And most older SCADA systems do not have any security features. So controls for their security should be implemented to compensate for these risks. And of course, these connections should be monitored and you should integrate the ICS SCADA network traffic into incident monitoring flows that you have in your security operations center. Um, so, uh, aside from the monitoring, technical audits for SCADA devices and network are also essential for the continued effectiveness of security. Many commercial and open source security tools are available to allow system administrator to perform audit of their systems or networks to identify active services, patch levels, and common vulnerabilities. Um, Using these tools will not solve systemic problems in your networks, will not solve the problems for you, but will eliminate the minimum resistance pathways that an attacker could exploit by showing you what are the vulnerabilities and what are the services that are used, and thus you can uh, have the visibility now, and uh, you can stop services that are no longer required uh, to be used, and you can see what remote connection are being used and with whom. So you should analyze these vulnerabilities that are identified to determine their significance and take corrective action as appropriate. So we should track also corrective actions that are being taken and analyze this information to identify trends. In addition, systems um, have to be re-audited after correction actions were taken to ensure that the vulnerabilities were effectively removed, not just audited. So, and last of the recommendation that I have is to mind the physical security of the hardware equipment also, because the physical equipment security must also be adequate to detect or prevent unauthorized access. So you should not leave network cables, plugs, and switchgear connected to the network in unsupervised locations. So anything not in use should be disabled and should not be otherwise than in enclosed spaces. And of course,
Mr. Stanil, sorry to interrupt. We are already running short of time, so you just have
yes,
about 1 minute left. Yeah, thank you.
yes, I'm about to finish. So thank you for mentioning it. So of course, we at SafeTech can assist in your security journey, and as we have the incident response team with the longest uninterrupted track record that uses next generation integrated security tools with the expertise to detect threats and respond to incidents. So thank you for listening and for being here for this presentation. And I hope it was informative for you. And I would like to thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanila, for your time and for your presentation. In case we have any questions, we will pass it on to you by email. Next up, we have a very exciting panel discussion on cybersecurity crucial to deliver a successful digital transformation and OT and IT convergence. It's going to be moderated by Mr. Anup Das, the cybersecurity expert from Mimecast. Over to you, Anup.
Thank you, Karan. I'm just waiting for Marinel to stop sharing so we can see the faces.
Okay.
Thank you. You would want to stop the sharing.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So I just
It'll be right on the top, Marinel.
okay, yeah, okay.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you for that, yeah. Good morning, gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to you all and to our esteemed audience. My name is Anup Das. I work for Mimecast. I manage the enterprise business in Middle East and India. Thank you for joining. We are almost welcoming 2022, the new year, and I thought we are at the end of the tunnel, started seeing some light, but the looks of it, I think we have a little more hurdles to cross. Since mid of 2020, we have been having these panel discussions, a lot of them, and we've been doing it the same way, like I'm sitting at home. Isn't this itself a digital transformation? Because we never dreamt of sitting at home and doing all these panel discussions. We've been meeting face to face, having nice coffees and lunches and meeting people in real world. It's completely on camera now. I would say pandemic was one of the key driver for any enterprise to accelerate their digital transformation journey. We saw almost 900% growth in the use of Teams. Everyone started using Teams, Zoom, Slack, a lot of these collaboration tools. I think Teams became one of the fastest growing app with almost 115 million daily active users. I think it also created one of the largest attack platform for the bad guys. Today we are here to discuss how crucial is cybersecurity to deliver a successful digital transformation journey. And we have, I'm actually proud to introduce our esteemed panelist, Mr. Ibrahim Tohari. He's a cybersecurity lead at Saudi Aramco. Welcome, Mr. Ibrahim. We have Khalid Al-Tanaji, Group Cybersecurity Lead Head at Enoch. We have Shakir Hashlan. I hope I'm pronouncing in the right way. He's an ICS and OT cybersecurity advisor at Saudi Electricity Company. We have Nicholas Jones, Senior Manager, OT Cybersecurity Leader, ENY. We have Hashim Al-Aziz, Cybersecurity GRC Manager, Taka. And we have Marinel Stanila. We all know Marinel already now. Welcome, gentlemen. Yesterday, I was in another panel, and we had a very senior a member from Saudi, and he said, "Anup, data is the new oil." I totally agree with him. Right? The connectivity is now very pervasive, and companies cannot pretend their plans and assets are separated from their IT systems. This also multiplies their attack surface. It leaves critical operational processes exposed, as Marinal was explaining, and he was also telling what not to do, what to do. It was very interesting. There is a need to ensure the right training, the right cybersecurity training, and keeping up with technology is not easy. There's a lot of buzzwords on AI, machine learning, all these things coming in the picture. Now, there is a proliferation of natively connected machines, and IoT is creating an unprecedented data explosion in the OT space, I would say. I would say cybersecurity must be put front and center in strategic decisions. It's essential enabler for the DT. The CISOs are already sitting on the board of the organizations nowadays. It's very interesting to see. Cool. So in this insight, I'm very keen to understand a few viewpoints from you all. The first question I wish to ask is to Ibrahim. Mr. Ibrahim, how would cybersecurity play a major part in success of the digital transformation journey in your organization or in any organization today?
Well, thank you, Anup, for the question. So, based on the nature of digital transformation, implementation, and the targeted services, as you said, data and data protection becomes an important factor in the digital transformation decision making. It influences the DT strategy, which can provide a great source for cybersecurity. So cybersecurity professionals can tap into the DT strategy and understand the requirements, the interactions, and the critical areas of the business where data need to be monitored, protected, and ensure the required level of service and protection is created. And cybersecurity needs to be part of the overall transformation strategy. Digital transactions need to be secure. An example, you cannot deal with a business that does not take cybersecurity seriously. And so cybersecurity is still an important business enabling and value-adding part, which to be considered for the success of any digital transformation journey. And with more reliance on connectivity, as you mentioned earlier, being secure can help organizations and individuals achieve the benefits of this transformation and realize the value of such an investment. You cannot, for example, you mentioned reliance on remote meeting. If remote meeting is not secure, nobody will dare to use it, let alone having business transactions, OT to IT transactions that are being tapped into using the digital transformation strategy of the business.
Interesting. I picked up a point that you cannot deal with businesses who are not serious with cybersecurity. Ibrahim, sorry, I didn't ask you to brief your role at Saudi Aramco. If you can, that'll be great.
Yeah, well, I worked inside Aramco for the past 15 or 16 years as an IT professional and team lead in multiple cybersecurity areas, as well as my previous background in data networking, network architecture, and IT operations. And it's really an honor to be among this panel of experts and who's who in their field.
Great, thank you for that. Khalid Al-Tanaji, if you can brief your role at Enoch, that'll be great. Over to you, Khalid.
Yeah, hi all. This is Adil Taneji. I'm actually heading the group cybersecurity aspect, where we govern and administrate and assure actually about security across both domains, IT and OT.
Great, thank you. Shakir, over to you if you can brief your role at Saudi Electricity Company.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shakir Al-Hashlan. My role currently is a industrial cybersecurity advisor in Saudi Electricity, mainly in power generation business line, but we do cover several aspects from power generation and control all the way to transmission and distribution of power. Previous expertise, I had the privilege to work in Saudi Aramco for 5 years. So we do have some oil and gas expertise, specifically in the upstream, and also in the national water company in Saudi Arabia, working in control of distribution, drinking water, and processing wastewater. So that's the previous. Currently, we're just working on securing our critical infrastructure in power generation business line here in Saudi Electricity.
Thank you for that, and very warm welcome. Nick, if you can briefly tell us about your role at ENY.
Sure, yeah, no problem. So my name's Nicholas Jones. I'm a senior manager here at EY, based in Doha, Qatar, originally from the UK. I've worked in the energy industry since 2008, and I've worked in cybersecurity for over 15 years. I've headed up IT divisions for critical national infrastructure organizations within the UK, but also led security programs across critical national infrastructure projects in Europe, the Caucasus, Asia, and now in the Middle East. I'm also sit on as an advisor to the ISA 62443 standards for the International Society of Automation. Thank
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Welcome. Hashim, if you can brief your role at TAQA.
Yeah, thank you, Anoop. My name is Hashim Al-Azizi. I'm cybersecurity GRC manager, holding the governance, risk, and compliance inside TAQA for about 3 years, including architecture, including strategies, and all the way for policies and standards, as well as risk management lifecycle.
Wonderful. You based in Abu Dhabi or Saudi?
No, there is two TAQA. TAQA
Okay.
in Abu Dhabi and TAQA in Saudi. They are separate. They are not related to each other. However, we are in TAQA Bahrain.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Great. And Marinel, I think you already had a wonderful presentation, so I don't think we need any more of your introduction. Thank you, Marinel, and a very warm welcome. In continuation to the answer from Ibrahim, I wish to ask Khalid, in your view, why is cybersecurity crucial to deliver a successful digital transformation journey?
Yeah, hi. I think if we talked about digital transformation of the journey for that, cybersecurity should be seen as not the good to have, but must to have. Because as organizations really move forward, really digitalizing their processes, their business processes, and their way of doing business itself, the dependencies on technology itself is getting higher and higher. At the same time, any specific cyber threat or an attack on that will really create big disruption on the business itself, which can reach to a total collapse in case that they don't have proper resiliency in place to fall out from, let's say, pure digital processes to something manual to just sustain the process. So organizations should really see cybersecurity as a must, and they should really proactively have the cybersecurity embedded within any digital transformation process. Because if you move forward with the transformation and things and later really think about cybersecurity, it will be really hard to mitigate it at this time. But if you start it from the beginning, it's so easy. We can embed it in. The culture will be actually thinking about cybersecurity and whatever people will really design their business processes or the technology aspects in, to make sure that it's actually have the cybersecurity controls embedded within. So that's how I see cybersecurity being actually an enabler also for digital transformation rather than something that can come after a breach or something that might happen to the business, and then they realize that they need to embed cybersecurity within their digital transformation initiatives.
That's very insightful. I like the way you interconnected the cybersecurity strategies to cyber resilience, and eventually it's a no-brainer to keep in mind the cybersecurity, the landscape while you design the strategy. I agree. This is a question to Shakir. Digital transformation is evolving. It's gaining a lot of buzz, and we even hear a lot of AI, machine learning. But what does it mean to you in the context of OT and ICS cybersecurity? Over to you, Shakir.
Yes. Okay. So when we're talking about OT, it's usually a different beast. And digital transformation and in general is becoming more, it's gaining more of a buzzword status. Everybody's talking about digital transformation, but what does it mean in different contexts? That usually it depends on the beholder, right? So in the context of OT and ICS, personally, I think about digital transformation as more of no paper transactions, hyperconnectivity of systems that's happening now, and more of, let's say, actionable information that allows us to capture opportunities in a market. So hyperconnectivity is one of the main aspects that we can see as gaining traction in the OT sector currently. Now, this is not different from a discussion that we used to have probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I think 2020 has been stolen from us. We missed it, but it had an enormous effect in the market, whether we realized it or not. The same discussion was IT and OT convergence. I think most of us heard that a lot in a certain year. It's almost the same thing. People are talking about digital transformation, that it's coming to OT. I personally think it's IT and OT convergence, and it's almost the same discussion, and it's the same systems that we had over a decade ago. 10 years ago, we started getting Windows XP machines coming into our OT systems. We started seeing Ethernet coming into our systems, and switches and routers. That is, in a sense, a convergence, and it's in a sense a digitalization of our OT systems. Now, if we are to think about it, that's almost the beginning of the movement to the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which is basically in the third revolution, we had systems that provided us with enormous amounts of data and types of data. And the 4.0 the Industrial Revolution, we started seeing this data being transferred through analytical technologies and equipment and systems that are being connected and turned into actionable information that we can use in taking our decision and our decision support systems. So digital transformation, it's a journey that is not going to start, or we are at the precipice of starting it. It's been happening for a decade now, and the result is obvious that we are starting to see more efficient systems, more solutions that are targeted to OT. And it's not something that we are to ignore. I mean, we had maybe the privilege before in ignoring it. I think we saw in the presentation that our esteemed colleague presented earlier, that we could have disconnected our systems, and we could have hid behind our systems are too diverse, are too complex, are too proprietary, and we could have stayed there for some time, but now I don't think that's a luxury we have. We have to work on our systems in securing them. Of course, like I said, hyperconnectivity, part of it also is remote connectivity into our systems. That's also been happening for some time, but I think we all can agree that it took discussions into connecting our remote systems would have taken at least 3 years, 4 years of discussion. Yeah. After COVID, I think it's a no-brainer. Most of our end users are starting to connect these systems. So maybe one problem that I see is these systems haven't, if some users are not aggressive in working in their expenditure and developing the architecture of these OT systems, probably the transition in protecting these systems would have been much more comfortable to them. That's one thing that they could have looked into. And there are a lot of aspects. I mean, such a question will need maybe hours to answer.
I think we can discuss a lot if you wish to elaborate. Yeah, I totally agree to that. Sorry to interrupt. So I captured that the hyperconnectivity industrial revolution 4.0, and you're saying that AI playing a role to provide you actionable intelligence, right? That's what you said.
Yes.
Great. It's a question to Nick. Why do companies need to digitally transform?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it's following on from the points that have previously been discussed as well. I think if you look at how to stay current, it's critical that we adapt to the society's needs as an evolution, really. So if we look back at history, why do societies go through a transformative age? It's typically driven by cost, and efficiency. So take the Industrial Revolution that we discussed, for example, and even now through the technology era, we're living through an era that's driven by cost, efficiency in regards to travel, but also now within energy, if you look at the illumination of the green agenda as well. So we have a look at, we've all heard of companies from the past that haven't evolved through digital transformation or through a digital revolution, and the market has caught up with them, and they've unfortunately fallen by the wayside. If you look at some of the Fortune 500 companies of maybe the year 2000 or even before that, and look at that again today, it's a very different Fortune 500 list. So from a society perspective, the requirements are there for a company to stay current, both in terms of energy efficiency, but also in terms of cost as well, and analysis from the end user.
Great, I understand that. Thanks for that, Nick. I have a question to Hashim. Everyone is a target. We hear a lot about espionage, sometimes a lot of ransomware attacks, and it can literally wipe out the data in your systems. Take an example of email, because many organizations rely on email heavily, and it can be in a sense that email is a lifeline to continue their business. So it impacts heavily. Now, why is cyber resilience a must for any organization, in your view?
Yeah, thank you, Anup. I think, as you know, in these days, the cyber threat landscape is evolving. The attack surface has been widened in a way that it's really affecting the business and cause loss of reputation as well as financial loss. Information systems and technologies are being adopted more and more, as my colleagues said, in the oil and gas field especially also, and other industries as well. So it's prudent to have the resiliency aspect in our systems, infrastructures, and technologies as well. Much like how we secure our people in case of a disaster or crisis, multiple disaster recovery plans shall be defined, developed, and implemented along with the multiple drills to be conducted throughout the year. So if the organization wants to survive, if they want to sustain their business operations, They shall take the cyber resilience in their business decisions. They have to allocate a proper budget, a proper resources, a proper personnel to sustain the values that they are delivering.
That's great. Thank you for that. Khalid, in your view, how do you view the evolution of industrial cyber threat, and what are you seeing on the ground today?
I think they go in parallel, right? Because cyber, let's say, adversaries will be looking for what really make business for them most. So business actually go and build services, build actually a need as much as consumers actually utilize those services, as much as the interest of the adversary will be in those such services. Or for some other reasons, let's say from espionage perspective, or actually from national kind of attack perspective to damage certain critical infrastructure or something. So as much as we digitalize, as much as we rely on technology, as much as the attack vector actually shift and the interest of the adversaries actually shift to those. And we saw what's happening globally from a couple of incidents that happened to Colonial Pipeline, for example.
Yeah.
No one would imagine even that it didn't hit really the OT systems, but hit actually a dependent system for their business services or business requirements to be able to bill other people. And the organization took a decision to shut down that switch, shut down that specific system to make sure that they actually can sustain their business process. And that created, let's say, a crisis where in a country level. So we can see all of these attacks happening. It can impact these days not only data by itself or an information system, but goes to an impact that can actually reach to safety issues or an integrity of a physical process or national service. For example, it can cause blackouts, it can cause poison for food or medicine, let's say, for example, in a certain situation, or cut off fuel from organizations to not be able to actually sustain their business services and things. And as I mentioned before, we rely more on technology, but yes, it's bring a lot of benefits and a lot of things and improvement to the business from reliability perspective, from efficiency perspective. At the same time, it creates an attack vector that if we don't consider in our strategies and the way we actually interact with these digitalization initiatives, going to create other crises for us that we might not anticipate. And sometimes the overall impact possible of such attacks is not properly evaluated or studied. So that's how I see it. We need to embed really cybersecurity from the beginning. Think about all possible attack scenarios, build those threat modeling for whatever services we are designing, and actually have the right control for the right purpose. At the same time, make sure that those services or processes will not be impacted from the extra controls we have limited on them to make sure that business can work at the same time can be secured. So security will not be seen as an, let's say, a showstopper, to be seen as an enabler at the same time.
That's a great example. I think it was an eye-opener, the Colonial Pipeline breach. And I think ransomware is always a motivation for these bad vectors to do it again and again. It's an easy money. So considering that we have an interconnected ecosystem, this is a question to Marino. What are the most pressing concerns for OT security in this kind of interconnected enterprise?
Thank you, Anu. Want to mention something, Mr. Altener. You said that attackers can also affect human lives. So I think one of the most the first priority actually that we have and the most pressing concern should be regarding the physical risks and the safety of lives, because threats to life safety are still a concern, but OT teams now face threats that are potentially outside of their control. With all the connecting machines, equipment, control systems, that are open to enterprise networks and beyond can leave them vulnerable to hacking. So hacking can override valve controls, for example.
Yep.
So emergency shutoffs can expose the employee to danger and production to costly disruptions. So this is one of the concerns. Another concern is to maintain and increase productivity, because that's why we are here now, to produce added value. So
Yep.
losing control of the manufacturing process or any other related devices are an OT team's absolute worst nightmare. You know. What if some malicious party was able to reprogram a device to skip a few steps or to halt production?
Yeah.
We don't want that. We absolutely
Absolutely.
don't want that. So this can also come back to the first concern, to possibly injure a customer user. No. Another thing that we absolutely don't want, and it is a concern, is data leaks and losing intellectual property. We absolutely do not want to lose that edge that we have, so that we can stay in the Fortune 500. No.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there is a comment from Daniel. A couple of comments, very interesting to read on the chat. Colonial was pure IT attack. The service interruption happened due to lack of BCP and not because of the attack. Anyway, thanks, Daniel. This is a question to Ibrahim. We have regulators tightening the grip. On one side, we wish to digitally transform. Is it really easy? And what impacts and risks are seen by the cybersecurity community that digital transformation team needs to be aware of?
Well, one of the risks is keeping up with the frequent changes that come as a consequence of implementing digital transformation in the organization. And how much strain it may put on IT and cybersecurity resources. In addition, having an increasing rate of connectivity between business processes might complicate and impact how cybersecurity is done. We might need to revise our cybersecurity strategy, our governance strategy, our risk analysis and risk assessment methodologies, just to keep up with such changes and with such new technologies that are being introduced. And reliance on technology alone to respond to potential threats will not be adequate, as the current technologies are not in the same base as DT. Add to that the skills shortage and on both DT professionals and cybersecurity professionals, where necessary talent and that are in high demand by many public and private organizations. And with the current threats focusing on data and data availability, such as ransomware, the threats actor will keep evolving their attacks, their methods, and will vary their processes based on many factors such as intent, availability of vulnerabilities, and attack requirement. We may see in the future threats that aim to disrupt the ability to use digital transformation itself, or hinder the implementation of digital transformation. We may see attacks that impact organizations' ability to execute DT programs, to use DT technologies, disrupt the connectivities between processes. And as DT depends on real-time data for decision making, this can be a risk point where cybersecurity and DT to work on together to ensure that both the resilience of the DT transformation capability and the cybersecurity resiliency, as my colleague Hisham said.
Yep.
Hashim
Thank
said.
you. Thank you, Ibrahim. That was very insightful. Hashim, you spoke about cyber resilience. What are the strategies to build a cyber resilient system in an organization, as per you?
Yeah, thank you, Anup. I would summarize some steps which any cybersecurity personnel might opt or take from. First, I would suggest to grant the commitment and support from the senior executives. There is no meaning of all the business continuity activities if the senior management are not really recognize the value of it. So grant first the support and commitment. Secondly, I would suggest also to start with the BIA, business impact analysis, where you analyze the business, analyze the processes, the activities, their owners, and the associated systems and technologies that are linked to that correspondent process, and what criticality and value of that processes in terms of availability aspect to the organization. Thirdly, I would suggest to start with the development of business continuity risk assessment to identify the most critical risks that your organization faces and develop the treatment options for them with the business owners. Lastly, I propose to have a business continuity strategy and plan in place. This could be a BC plan, incident response plan, and disaster recovery plan, and to be aligned together with the multiple drills in place to ensure this alignment and communication.
That's great. Thank you for that. I like that BIA, you said, business impact analysis.
BIA, yes, it is abbreviated.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Shakir, when I started my career, I used to go to this machine factory, like Siemens used to have these CNC machines. Fanuc used to have their CNC machines, PLC machines. And whenever I used to visit, that portion used to be isolated. They have their own network, or they hardly had any network, I would say. And those are never exposed. So I would say they are isolated networks. And there were no issues, yeah, those days.
So, the good old days.
Yeah. Why digital transformation in the OT? You look at these SCADA systems, all those things. There are so much of risk, cost overhead. We hear about, and why not develop? And we have both without connecting our systems, or find some other way. What's your view?
So what I understand is, why are we going towards digital transformation?
Yes.
Okay, let me start with an analogy. If I asked you to stop eating now, so in the short term, probably you will be weak, you will become, and you won't be able to flourish in the market. Okay.
I won't be able to sit and talk to you.
Yeah, probably. I won't say I'm that strong, but that's one thing. But in the long term, I would say you will cease to exist. Okay. So this is digital transformation. Basically, the whole market now is moving towards that, and sitting in your own bubble saying, I don't need to develop myself. I don't need to add more functionality, enhance my operations, capture efficiencies. That is not a smart business strategy. So coming back to your question, I would say the main driver for digital transformation, if we are to categorize it or to give it a name, okay, so digital transformation, which is basically developing our systems to become more efficient, much more helpful in capturing the market opportunities,
intelligent.
Yeah, making it more intelligent by connecting it to the cloud and making use of these new technologies, machine learning, AI, which mainly are now we're talking about it, and people are thinking these are more of a taking more of a buzzword status, like I said in the beginning. But what we are mainly doing are we're trying to take away the manual aspect of our operations and making it more automated. So we don't need to work on some Excel sheet and print it and take it to some analyst, and the analyst will see where can we better get more power out of our gas turbines, or having some manufacturer designer or architects look into inefficiencies and maybe take some time. But also, what I like to emphasize when we're talking about digital transformation, one of the main aspects are moving our data from data silos that are distributed here and there and they are sparse, and making much more use of them. There's a saying that when you have too much data and you're not making use of them, is basically you are data rich but information poor, which is a problem that a lot of companies have and a lot of business owners have. But when we're moving towards digital transformation, that means we're making use of machine learning, AI, edge computing, digital twins, which is technology that's catching up, especially in the energy market. You simulate and model your operation on some asset, and then throwing at it different scenarios where you see which is better for you. And like I said, if we're to pull back our discussion from digital transformation to, I think the camera went off. But if we are to move our discussions from digital transformation to cybersecurity, this is an important aspect, that we need to secure these systems before we connect them. Prepare our architecture, consider our teams that they will be working on these systems. They are the same technologies, maybe not. There are some differences. The teams have some skills that work in OT, sometimes not, but developing them, having them consider the mission of these systems is crucial. So they are the same systems sometimes, but the mission is different. We're dealing with physics, we're dealing with actual systems that, like our colleagues said, that if somebody miss something, we may have a loss of life event, we may have a loss of asset event, so it's not something to be taken lightly. That's why there are huge gains, huge values that we can uncover by digitalizing our OT, but cybersecurity needs to be injected within the process.
I agree. That took me to the healthcare. I was sitting with one of the CIO of a hospital, and he said they're incorporating the Da Vinci surgical systems. And then just your camera went off. I was a bit worried about it. Anyways,
a lot of teams, they usually they don't understand that's a different system, but they take their policies, their technologies from the IT and they push it into OT. Don't do that. The mission is different. You need to consider that.
I agree. You mentioned less human intervention. Yeah, interesting. Nick, from your experience, what are some of the key foundations for the OT security journey?
Yeah, so I think we've heard a lot about those technical requirements, if you like, or those fundamentals of knowing your assets, user access, hardening, segmentation, and design, etc. But for me, it's really about having the foundation of knowing your audience. And as we've talked about here, we're not talking about IT engineers. Typically, we're talking about a blend of IT and OT, so the engineering community in that respect. But having senior management buy-in, as the panelists have already spoken about, is really, really critical. But also just having that set of policies and procedures aligned to OT, not IT, I think is really fundamental. And having that governance model, that structure, and obviously the culture within that organization will make a massive impact to that security posture of the organization as well. So I think having those blend of non-technical controls, if you like, from the people and the process aspect is really fundamental.
Interesting. That's interesting. If I may ask Ibrahim, with this current threat landscape, we're having a lot of increased reliance on technology to enable the business. What should digital transformation and cyber teams do to ensure a secure, successful business?
Well, DT and cybersecurity need to understand the required goals for the specific DT use cases. They need to work together to understand involved technologies and what adversaries might be targeting. They also need to look at involved data, assets, technologies, processes, and identify risks associated with such technologies and such interconnectivity of the proposed implementation. I think Hashim has touched on certain methodologies to ensure resilience and governance of the cybersecurity function as part of the DT.
Yep.
And there is a need to foster an environment of technical collaboration between DT, IT, cybersecurity, OT, and other business stakeholders, as risks that used to be specific to one area may become a shared risk, spanning and affecting multiple business units. And to facilitate a way for DT and cybersecurity professionals to speak a common language, which will help pave the way for the above-mentioned collaboration. Technical and managerial skills to support such collaboration will need to be factored into consideration as part of the development plan, as part of the career path of the organization talent. They need to look at what skills the market has to offer, what the skills that they have, and what are the gaps in both in their skills, in their technologies, and in their processes and capabilities to achieve the overall digital transformation strategy and make it successful and more secure.
Great. So in one way, DT and cybersecurity is tightly interconnected. Great. Khalid, what are some of the positive points that you see in the industry that shows a movement towards better securing the OT infrastructure?
Yeah, I think what's happening recently is that the attacks or the media is really moving, let's say, into, let's say, showing the importance of cyber, showing these breaches that's been happening, and sometimes it's been actually extra exaggerated in some cases. But I think that part really helps to actually drive change within organization and within, let's say, a regulator side also, to put more regulation to make sure that organization will be really changing and moving into improving their cyber hygiene and implement required control, at least to sustain certain damages that's been happening. We have seen a huge surge in such information being actually getting into the media. People are starting to discuss those. We're seeing there more interest actually happening between different people and professionals in this field, like these conferences that we are in and actually events that's happening. It's increasing the awareness globally about cyber threats and cyber risk itself, which will drive change at the same time within organization, within countries, to make sure that this type of threat is real, because a lot of people thought it's a myth before and never actually really consider it actively. And this is what's seeing actually being moved and changed right now. We see more regulations coming in place, more focused regulation, not just on compliance, but then also effectiveness of implementing required controls. Because requirement for cybersecurity is old. You might go and be in compliance with certain standard or requirements, but that don't really reflect your real effectiveness of cybersecurity controls you have in place. because you can actually say, yes, I'm compliant with 1, 2, 3, 4 standards, but if you don't really sustain an effective control implemented out of those standards, it's meaningless because adversaries will not look at your standards or your certifications. They will look for a vulnerability within your infrastructure or within your platforms and just exploit it and move forward into damaging your business. So this is what I'm seeing happening globally. We're seeing more in regulator push into implementing this and mandating further and further controls. At the same time, awareness within, let's say, management layer or board layers is actually happening. People are pushing more actions. These requirements is being cascaded down and empowered from, let's say, top management and board of directors down to organization where it can be enforced and actually make sure that certain controls are implemented in a place and certain hygiene are really happening from cybersecurity perspective to reduce the overall attack vector across organization or across countries and landscapes.
Thanks for that. I was at the ATHAC event in Riyadh last week, and most of the CISOs emphasized the same what you said. Awareness is very key. And many organizations are building their own tools or programs to improve the cyber awareness internally. That's good. Marinal, you spoke about the most pressing concerns for OT security in a connected enterprise. How can organizations tackle these concerns?
Well, as previous panelists said, technology alone will not solve any of these problems, neither do certification. So that could be a deterrent, but not a solution. So the first step should be to bring all interested parties, all stakeholders into the discussion. So all relevant stakeholders of a company, industrial and enterprise operations must have a voice in the building consensus of which metrics are most critical for the organizations and which metrics need improvement. So they should focus on the unique requirements of their organization and their operation while managing the risk for downtime and for security. Now, together, they should consider what are critical assets that are likely to fail, when and why. So, like a business impact analysis that was previously mentioned.
Yep.
How could an asset failure impact in order of the importance, like personnel, operation, and production downtime and costs? So stuff like this. We should provide education on industrial networks and their security also to the IT teams. So knowledge should flow both ways, not just from the IT to the OT, because convergence, like previously said, can be done in multiple places. So from different point of view, and it should flow both ways. So knowledge should be shared amongst both teams. So yeah, and I think the third point, in my opinion, you should find an experienced partner to facilitate kickstarting your journey, or to facilitate.
I was about to, sorry to cut you, Marin. I was about to ask you on that. I mean, you guys do a lot of work on OT security. So can SafeTech be a partner for organizations?
Yeah, of course, SafeTech can be a partner for organization in regards to OT security, as we have experience for many years in implementing security for OT environments and consulting on the security of OT environments all over the world, from New Zealand to the United States and Asia. And so because we do this, and we come with the knowledge from IT, but also from OT. So we have a 360 view on security and we know also the GRC part and the solution implementation part, and we have teams dedicated for vulnerability assessment that can help you verify if the solution were implemented properly. And of course, we have the capabilities to monitor because threats can appear even if you make all the right steps.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it right. I have a question to Hashim. When it comes to cloud transformation, I mean, I think we passed that era. 10 years back, we had all these concerns and challenges and apprehensions moving to cloud. And when I went to Saudi also, I think there is a partial movement towards cloud. What risk should be considered when migrating to cloud?
Yeah, actually, this is a good question. Thank you, Anoop. When it comes to cloud transformation, there are multiple risks arises which needs to be considered, such as data protection risks, data loss, compliance risks, availability risks, software and supply chain risks. So all of these risks and others would heavily affect our decisions on choosing the cloud transformation strategy and the cloud service provider and how can we go further. Moreover, the connectivity approach between systems and the cloud service providers must also be considered. My advice to security practitioners is to conduct a thorough cybersecurity risk assessment on your business processes that you need to transform it to be on the cloud. Then it's prudent also to conduct another risk assessment against the cloud service providers to figure out what are the top risks and areas that needs to be addressed before the engagement is being agreed on.
Great. That's very structured and to the point, precise. Thank you. Shakir is back. I can see him now. Shakir, I have a question. Sometimes cybersecurity is viewed as an enemy to DT, especially in OT.
Yeah.
How, in your view, can cybersecurity be an enabler?
The word enemy is usually a bit aggressive, but sometimes it's true. I don't envy the CISOs and the security personnel the past 2 years. They have been put in almost an impossible position. People wanted to connect as soon as possible, almost all of the systems, and with no security in mind and no architecture ready and no expenditure in place to develop. And it was a bit difficult for them. Now, that's why we thought of them as enemies sometimes. It was something that was apparent at that time. And now, if we are to consider why, or is there a way that we can look at the security personnel as enablers? Yes. I think currently almost every company and every facility have some digital transformation activity, some digital transformation officer, if you may. It's becoming more of a norm now. Find as a security practitioner or a security official, find that person, sit with him, understand the business. This is something that I always emphasize when talking to executives, that we are more of a support team. We're not the business. If you're coming into any business, unless they are a cybersecurity business, you are not the core business. Your job is to support the core business, the product, the money-making operations that's happening. That's your job. So finding the digital transformation and the business objectives, align yourself with that, and then start looking into where are your facilities, not specifically doing an asset inventory, but understanding where are the facilities, which is bigger, which is more important. Let's say for a power plant, a 3 gigawatt power plant is much more important than a 500 megawatt power plant. So I'll start with that into developing policies, developing technologies, developing what I should do. And once you have the plan in sight, have the other people, the other executives, the digital transformation people, have them get some buy-in. Okay, you're planning to transform or going on a digital transformation journey here. How about we go with you? We'll inject our cybersecurity expertise into developing that. And considering the mission, considering what you want to do, what's important to your company, looking into the business continuity management plans, looking into your disaster recovery. Safety is a huge thing. So understanding where are your safety instrumented systems and how they should work. And once you have all of that, understanding the risk in business terms, we can all put the risk into a matrix and understand that this has a vulnerability, this has something, a breach somewhere. But putting it in business terms, that's usually the challenge.
Right.
And after all of that, maybe use some standards. That standards are good. They provide a common language that we can talk to each other, talk to vendors, talk to other operators. And using that is good, but don't get hung up on it. That's usually, I don't think Hashim will agree with me because he's a GRC person, but usually we get hung up on standards that we need to satisfy them.
Of course, Shakir, I totally agree with you. Yes.
Yes, I need to specify this. Being compliant with a standard it's usually you're not secure. Sometimes you're hindering the operations, and that will usually cause the people even with awareness efforts to let go of the security efforts that you're doing. So being compliant, it doesn't mean that you're secure. It basically means that you satisfy some guy who wrote something on a piece of paper. That's usually not the important part. So go back to your standards, find the common language, go back to your operations, find out what looks right, what fits, and understand it, and go on and rinse and repeat, basically. So that's usually why you've been looking into security personnel as an enemy, where in fact he can work as an enabler in your digital transformation journey.
Thank you, Shakir, for that. Nick, in closing, what are the 3 takeaways you want to leave with the audience, especially when considering a proactive and smart cybersecurity strategy?
I think, as I think everyone's mentioned, having that knowing your audience attitude towards it, knowing your assets, as we've talked about, whether that's your criticality, not just your doing your whole holistic asset inventory, but it's a blend, isn't it, of people, process, and technology. I think if we just focus on one of those facets, then we're going to be in trouble. I think we need to have that holistic view of all 3 and really drive the business forward from that on.
Thank you for that. Khalid, what's your takeaway you want to leave with the audience?
I think it's a matter of digital transformation and cybersecurity. Both of them need to be agile in a way that they interact with each other. For example, as a program perspective, cybersecurity need to consider how fast organization need to actually adapt and transform, and be flexible actually to focus on the control objective, not the control itself. Sometimes you will not be able to enforce exactly the control that your policies or standards talking about, but you can actually satisfy the real need of that control by having a conversation control in place and make sure that, yes, the business will be moving. At the same time, the attack vector or actually the risk from that specific control gap is being addressed in a certain way. Sometimes you can't address it immediately, but you compensate it. At the same time, you have a clear roadmap on how we'll address it in the future fully and permanently. So just being agile from that perspective, make sure that you're focusing on the objective of the control, make sure that you enable really the business rather than actually stopping it, I think is the way forward into blending cybersecurity into digital transformation.
Thank you, Khalid. Ibrahim, from your perspective, what's the takeaway you want to leave with the audience?
Well, for DT and cybersecurity, what I say is three words: communicate, collaborate, and innovate together. This is something that both have an invested interest in. Ensuring security of the digital transformation is a value that is added to the overall digital transformation, and cybersecurity can benefit from this digital transformation in streamlining some of its processes, have a fresh look at what cybersecurity might look like few months from now, few years from now, or even few decades from now. Have that perspective, look at it with optimism, and capitalize on your talents, your capabilities, and the partners that you have in the business to achieve your overall goal from digital transformation.
I think CCCI, communicate, collaborate, capitalize, and innovate together. Thank you, Ibrahim. I can't see Hashim anymore, but he's there. Hashim, what is your takeaway to the audience? No, Hashim is away. He's there.
Yes.
Yeah, Hashim.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear us, Hashim? We'll move on. We'll come back to you, Hashim. Shakir, what's your takeaway to the audience? Maybe one takeaway.
I would say that a lot of discussion is happening about digital transformation and the IT-OT convergence and what we are doing about it. I would say that consider your stakeholders, consider what you are planning to do and how to do it, inject the security, the cybersecurity concepts and the security in general. I mean, we don't just look into cyber, we also have to look into the physical world. It doesn't make sense to install all of these systems and leave the door open, right? Absolutely. So considering all of that and thinking that the privilege of staying in the past is no longer there. We have to innovate. Even if you want to buy new systems or new equipment, state-of-the-art features that you are trying to protect will be there. So you need to move towards it. Also, the main drivers now are more enhancing efficiencies. And for some companies, that efficiency is maybe 2-3%, maybe 4% of their operating cost, and that's it. So moving into digital transformation and enhancing these efficiencies means more profit. That means they will move there. So injecting the cybersecurity concepts early on is crucial if you want to have a digitally transformed, safe and secure facility on your hands.
Great, thank you. Marinal, do you want to add on?
Yes, thank you. So I would like to build on the very first thing that you said when we started the panel. So the knowledge is power. So information is the new oil, as you said, and as it was previously said. So in my opinion, visibility is the key thing. So having that visibility into your environment can allow you to secure them. So or can give you ideas or how can they be exploited, or what are the risks and what should you do, because starting the digital transformation or buying new equipment is all nice and good, but you have to implement the most adequate measures that apply to your own organization, not just buy everything that everybody wants to sell. No.
Great.
This is amazing. So visibility into your own operations.
Thank you. Thank you, Marinal. Hashim, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I just have two takeaways. first of all, define clearly what you need.
Yep. Did we lose Hashim? Is that my problem or?
No, it's
No, we've
All
lost
right.
him, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Great. So thank you, gentlemen. It was a very insightful discussion. Absolutely, cyber resilience is key. Whichever vertical, whichever business you're in, a digital transformation is taking the pace, no doubt in that. You need to find the balance and keep the controls in mind before or while defining the strategy. Thank you all. So we're concluding this panel. Have a great, wonderful day.
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you
as
all.
well.
Over to you, Karan. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. So, maintaining cybersecurity in today's technologically driven world has become so vital to the health of any business. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you, Marinal. Thank you, Khalid. Thank you, Ibrahim.
as well for
Thank you,
having me.
Anup. And thank you, Shakir. And also thank you to the audience for taking their time out to participate. Thank you, everyone.